All right. Well, who are you? What do you do? Where are you from? Tell me about yourself.
So, been in ministry since I was 20 years old,
Okay.
and I'm 55 now, so 35 years. And my wife and I got married at that same time, so we've been married 35 years next month.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah.
What's the secret?
It's, the secret is actually just stay humble before God.
Mm.
If you'll do that, if you'll pursue the Lord first and then your wife second, you'll pursue your wife properly.
Okay.
If you don't, it's too easy to get things out of perspective. You get selfish. You get a lot of things, and so potentially does your wife too. But
Were you raised Christian?
I was.
Was
My
your dad in the
parents.
ministry?
No, my dad was not in the ministry. My grandmother was
Okay.
actually here in Colorado, and then
That was before it was cool to be a female,
yeah.
minister.
Well, so my church is part of the Assemblies of God. We've always been very egalitarian from day one. It's just always been so much a part of us that years ago, 20-something years ago, when I went to Denver Seminary and I realized that not everybody was egalitarian. Some people don't like women being in ministry. It caught me off guard. I thought that was kind of an old school thought process because I hadn't really processed it theologically. But yeah, so my parents gave their heart to the Lord when I was about 5 years old. We started going to a church. I remember the first time I ever walked in the church because it was new to me, and I found it very interesting.
And it was Assembly of God was the first one.
Assemblies of God, yeah, in Texas, which is challenging because Pentecostal in Texas was very legalistic back in the 70s and the 80s, mostly 70s when I was growing up. But so but I actually left home at 17 to be in the Navy first before I went in ministry.
Wow. Thank you for your service, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to get away from an overbearing father, so I went to boot camp. And
Yeah. Was that an upgrade or a downgrade?
Yeah, I realized, oops, that's not what I thought it was going to be. But
That's funny.
no, he prepared me. I joke about that a little bit. But I was 17. I'm trying to get out on my own, do my own thing. I've always been that way. But he prepared me, and I actually, it wasn't a big deal for me. I really enjoyed being in the Navy. I had to get out because of ministry stuff and how that was lining up. Plus, at that time, President Clinton was downsizing the Navy like crazy. This was early 90s, and there was a few 100,000 people, military, that were coming out of military service into reserves and stuff like that, and it was making everything very difficult to get promoted, to get the right job, all those other kind.
What was his rationale for that? Was that just to cut budget?
Well, some of it was a cut budget, but you have to remember that the left side of the Democrat Party, really this is one of the things that is actually kind of part of the Democrat platform, but gets pushed by the left extreme side, is we hate the military. We hate soldiers. We don't like what's going on there. Now, there's a lot of rank and file Democrats that don't think that way, but they still don't want a strong military because then that makes us look like these big bad guys around the world, and that makes us horrible, I guess. But
Yeah.
but the fact that I've been in countries all around the world as doing missions work, doing all kinds of stuff for 35 years, and in many countries, leaders of countries that I've talked to will tell me if America falls, the rest of the world falls. And so it's actually pretty good and pretty important that our military is out there. Now, I would probably change things how we do on a world scene, but
Sure.
But yeah.
Well, I mean, you at least want to have the ability or the capability to be big and bad. Maybe you don't want to wield that. You need to be very careful about, obviously, how you wield military power, but you should be capable of great destruction, but also have the self-control to know how to use it wisely and properly. So speak softly and carry a big stick is kind of the summary of that philosophy. But anyway, didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's true. I agree with that totally. If you're the overwhelming, not a little bit stronger than the other guys, but overwhelmingly stronger than everybody, then, and I still do believe, I know a lot of people seem to disagree with this, but I believe overall America is the great moral country, and that our freedoms and ideas that we were built upon, now those have been under attack for quite a long time, But those principles really do guide us around the world. And there are the times, I know Vietnam was a tricky thing, although I still agree with what we were trying to do there. But my dad was in Vietnam. I was born during Vietnam. But you got to be careful how you wield it. But I think America has done pretty decent with our power and our strength and our ability. And really only
In
over the last
totality,
100.
definitely a net positive for sure.
Yes,
Yeah.
a total net positive against communism, against the onslaught of China and Russia. And we see that now, that we were right about these things. Reagan was right about all this stuff
Yep.
when he said tear the wall down and those kind of things. But the occasional slip up that we do, I think you have to give a little bit of grace there.
So on the spectrum from isolationist to neocon, where would you kind of place yourself, Warhawk?
I'm really going to strongly lead toward isolationist, not purely because there are things that we have to do around the world. There are, for example, right now in Israel, that seems to be the big kick up, and everybody is so upset, and Israel's the bad guy. But let's just look over history at what has happened to Israel and how these people continue to attack. And I said a couple weeks ago when everybody was touting Trump's great peace plan and all this other stuff. Now, I love Trump. I love what he was doing there, and I agree with what he was trying to do. But I look in the Bible and realize this is bigger than what Trump is recognizing. And then when he was talking about all this great peace, and everybody else was too,
Yeah.
it's not, I knew it wasn't going to happen. I got up in my church 2 weeks ago and said, look, this is not what it appears. We're going to be bombing Gaza here in a few weeks. Biggest bombing of Gaza last night. Because why? They are never going to stop trying to destroy all Jewish people. It is a complete eradication of an entire people group, a genocide that the United Nations is backing and people around the world. So America does need to be involved in some of those kind of things,
Yeah.
but not everywhere all the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes you do have to let some of this kind of stuff play out.
I definitely do want to get to kind of the Israel stuff and more philosophy and politics stuff. But real quick, I wanted to finish up some biographical information. How did you initially, so you said you became a pastor at the age of 20. How long did you do that for before you started becoming politically active?
Well, that's not as cut and dried of an answer as it might sound like. I've
Okay.
always been politically charged. And I started listening to Rush Limbaugh in 1991 as a youth pastor of a church. I
Okay.
was 21 years old. And I stumbled across Rush Limbaugh on the radio. I was looking for something else. And this guy caught my attention.
Yeah.
And he was saying things like I felt, but I was hearing no one say this anywhere. No one on the radio, no one on TV. It was the opposite, like on TV stuff.
Yeah.
Right? So, but he was singing, and then plus he was just irreverently funny, and I kind of liked that as a youth pastor,
Sure.
And so I started listening, and I didn't realize that I basically signed up for the EIB School of Politics.
Okay.
And
What do you mean by that?
I loved it.
Okay.
I loved it.
Like, was it an actual kind of program that he did?
No. That's the way he talks about it. EIB
Okay,
is
I
excellence in
understand.
broadcasting, and that was his thing.
Yeah.
And he would talk about how you're going to school every single day when you're listening to him. You're in
Sure.
political university, right?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. And I learn and I learn and I learn. And I've always been a student of everything. I study the Bible voraciously, and I'm just a student. And I also have degrees that I went and got through that time frame. I went to college for a couple years, one state college, one Bible school, failed out of both years. And that's when I went to be a youth pastor.
Yeah.
I was kind of on the run. But then since then, I went back and got degrees. I have a doctorate, but that's because I'm a learner. And I actually probably learned as much or more. I learned more listening to Rush Limbaugh over the years than anything else, any university, anything.
Yeah. I say that about podcasts that I listen to. Like, yes, I have a political science degree, but I learned way more outside, and even just talking to people, but listening to podcasts and
Yes.
reading and that kind of thing.
And that's how I believe that's really primarily how we're supposed to learn, is really get around people that know stuff. They're willing to teach you. And sometimes it's passively. That's how I was with Rush. I never met Rush. But I've always been politically charged from the pulpit, and some of it comes from that, and then also understanding what Scripture says. There's a mindset ministry ranks, which is wrong. It's not biblical that we're not supposed to get involved in politics. But that actually started at LBJ, and I could unpack that if you wanted. But before the revolution, up until LBJ, pastors, churches were always the tip of the spear in politics, the very tip, the front edge. And then LBJ threatened everybody, and all the churches got scared of their tax-exempt status. Which to me is actually disgusting.
Did that have to do mostly with endorsing candidates, or what was kind of the policy?
No, it was everything. LBJ got upset because the church came out against him in an election.
Okay.
And they attacked him because he cheated on his wife like crazy. He slept around with everybody. He was a racist. He was all kinds of very bad things of human society. And the church stood up against him and said, "This is not the guy. We're not gonna support this, and we urge everybody to vote against him." He lost the election. And then when he became president later, he instituted what's called the Johnson Amendment, which said if you do anything political as a church or as a pastor, you'll have your tax-exempt status taken away. It's called your 501c3.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole church got scared. Although it wasn't a law, it didn't have any teeth to it, and he couldn't do anything about it. And all of the liberals, the Democrats, who he was okay with, they were all having rallies in their churches and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
And so the church got scared.
Kind of reminds me of the 2020 riots. Like, you can only congregate if you're destroying things.
Right, or if you're anti-Trump or anti-conservatism or anti-Christian or anti-Jewish, you can destroy anything you want. Right. You can steal, you can loot, you can attack, you can assault. But if you call yourself a Democrat, then you have this freedom that conservatives don't.
Yep. Did LBJ actually win an election, or was he just vice president when JFK was assassinated?
He became he became president because of JFK.
Right, but he never won an election before or after that. Okay.
No. And so, he did getting up and through politics.
Sure. Yeah, but a presidential election, I should have specified.
So, so then the church got all scared. Oh, we're not going to do this. Mm-hmm. Which, if you're deciding what you're going to preach, teach, and lead in the church, which transcends LBJ to now.
Right.
The Christian church is 2,000 years old, and it's been through a lot of persecution around the world, and people have stood up, died for it. But we're scared to death of our tax-exempt status.
Yeah.
To me, that's not okay.
How did you respond with your congregation to the COVID lockdowns?
So I got together with my board in November of 19, and I had already seen some stuff on TV, and I look back now, and I wonder how much of this was I was paying attention in the news, of which I'm very, like I said, I'm a very deep student of everything that's going on.
Sure.
I kind of seem to be ahead of the game in a lot of ways, but it's because I spend so much time studying so much. I don't know how much of it was just that, or maybe I feel like looking back a couple years later, when I was looking back and my board and I were discussing this, that this was, God was leading us, okay? At the time, I didn't notice that as much. I felt like there was a spiritual concept to this. But our board met together, and I basically said, okay, look, here's what I think's about to happen. I think we're about to have, I didn't use the word pandemic because nobody was using that yet.
Yeah.
And COVID was still a word of infancy at that point.
Yeah. You said this was the end of 2019?
2019.
That's pretty early, man.
This is November of 19.
Wow.
And we sat down and came up with a plan of what we're going to do for COVID. And the way I saw it was, I think this is going to be a big, like a flu outbreak. I was thinking more like bird flu.
Sure.
Because I didn't have all the information at that time, but I just really felt strongly in my spirit that we needed to plan for this. And I told our board then that I believe the government was going to use this to shut down churches.
Really? You said that in 2019?
I said that in November of 2019.
Oh my gosh.
And so our board came up with a plan together.
That's amazing foresight, by the way.
Looking back now, yes. At the time, I was just thinking, I don't think this doesn't look good. We should do something here. We should plan something.
Sure.
Now I look back and I'm like, I was a genius. But I really didn't look at it like that at the beginning.
Yeah.
I knew something was happening. I knew we needed to pay attention. I knew this was important. And so our board came up with a plan. It was a simple plan. In fact, I'll give you one little aspect I don't usually talk about publicly, but my board said, well, let's get up and announce that we, as the board, are going to tell our church We're not closing our doors. We're not going to do any of this stuff. Um, that's not the language that we use because we didn't realize that they were going to be trying to force us to close our doors.
Yeah.
But I felt like something like that was coming. Okay, so, and I told the board, I said, guys, this is what I think we need to do. I want to do this I'm sorry, hit that microphone.
You're good.
I want to do this in solidarity. And they said, that does make a little more sense. Although it's not like they were going to let me hang out there to dry. That wasn't the point. The point was if I do this solo, then when I get put in jail, there are people there waiting to get me out of jail, run the church, do all this stuff. And so we had those discussions. And I did have a board member that left the church over it. He thought that millions of people were going to die and that literally half our church was going to die. That was a statement he said to me.
Wow.
To our whole board. And so we built the plan, and one of the plan was when pastor goes to jail. That was part of the plan.
Yeah.
No, I never did.
Wow.
The health department called me a few times. A few reporters called me. But we already had a video presence online. We'd had that for a while because we have such a strong military presence in our church and in Colorado Springs that we did that so that our military could when they went back to deployment, they could interact with our church and the sermons and stuff like that. And so we never close our doors 1 second. I still have pastors that'll get up in Colorado Springs and talk about how they never close their doors, which is interesting because I have people going to my church that came because their doors were closed.
Yeah. I don't know how they're saying that ethically because it was at least 95% of churches that shut their doors. We shut our doors. We were one of the first ones to open in this area, so we got a lot of people from the COVID shutdowns because we were early to reopen, but everyone shut their doors.
I don't pick on churches that open within, 2, 3, 4 months, okay? Because this had never happened to us as a country. Now, I did have a friend of mine that he actually preached in my church this last weekend because I was out of town. But he said to me 3 years ago, he said, Satan poked the underbelly of the church and found it to be very soft. And but I think there's bigger subjects there, political, theological, fear. Churches like to have money and people in the building. It makes them look good. The more people, the more money, the more successful you are. It doesn't matter what you're doing or teaching or preaching or whatever. Sure. I mean, I'm not saying they're preaching or teaching wrong. I'm saying our metric in society today in church culture is how big your church is and how much money you have.
Yeah.
And so that's not a thing for me.
Yeah. By the way, if that's your metric, typically those people are not willing to risk going to jail for their values and beliefs.
They're not willing to risk standing up in church and talking about anything. They're not willing to risk saying something like this last November, Amendment 79, this is going to constitutionalize abortion. We as the church cannot be a part of murdering God's kids.
Yeah.
They won't say stuff like that.
Yeah.
They're scared of it. Because why? They're scared of people leaving the church.
Yeah.
But we gained people during COVID. We never masked. We never distanced. We played a little game with how our online presence looked. This was more of the people in the church, and I thought it was funny, so we did this.
Yeah.
We looked at where our cameras were facing toward the stage, right?
Okay.
And we made sure nobody was sitting in those triangles.
Right.
But everywhere else, it was
so
full.
On video, you couldn't tell that there was...
In video, it looked like I was preaching to an empty building. And I would say funny things about it, but then you could hear people laughing in the building about it, and so it was like a joke. We knew that if you really question it, you knew our building was full.
Yeah.
And then by Easter of that year, so that's 2 months later, 3 months later, we were full. We went back to double services, and some of those people have gone back to their other churches, which I'm totally okay with. But when they needed us, we were actually there.
Yeah.
Hebrews chapter 10, verse 25 says, don't forsake the assembling yourselves together. You need to be together.
Yeah.
Specifically during times of the government trying to close you down. You need to be together. Specifically when suicide rates are going through the roof because kids are sitting at home. Statistically, we found this, and I know there's got to be stuff out there about this, but we started seeing where abusive families, the abuse went off the charts. During that time frame, because now kids and parents are with each other all the time,
and they're isolated,
and they don't have anybody else out there. There's no accountability groups or mentoring groups that maybe this abusive father keeps it in rein, by getting counseling, all this other stuff, that just cut off.
Yeah.
Now you're at home with the kids all day.
Well, some of the aftermath of COVID is still that there's a lot of people that use online, live church service as a replacement for church. Listen, it's better than nothing, but it is not a replacement for live in-person congregation talking, seeing real life people, worshiping God together. It's just not, it's not the same. Like, I don't know. I don't think it's wise for people to replace church with a video. I just don't. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's good if you're out of town, you're on vacation. Okay, that's great, fine. But like, go to church, man.
Well, this is not a new phenomenon. We started seeing in the 1980s when some of the Christian broadcasts, well, CBN, Christian Broadcasting Network, it wasn't called that back in those days, but where they started showing some of the TV preachers, right? Mm-hmm. And people started watching that instead of going to church.
Yeah.
And so this is
I love me some TD Jakes, dude. I do. I'm sorry. I hate to say it. I even like Joel Osteen too. People criticize me for liking Joel Osteen, but I do. I think he has a massive positive influence in our country. Sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, I listen to a lot of ministers online because I don't go to church to listen. I speak.
Yeah.
Right. And so the occasional time when I actually, a couple times a year when I'm at somebody else's church, when I go on vacation, I love going to church. My kids hated it.
Yeah.
They're all grown now, but they hated it. Like, Dad, we have to go to church all the time. I said, you do, but I don't.
Right.
I don't ever get to go to church. But that's not what the scripture says. It didn't say just listen to the word of God being preached. It said you got to get together. You got to assemble together. Because the word of God being preached at that is a major part of it, but it's not the only thing.
Right.
I need to interact with people younger than me, older than me. I need to interact with people with different theological views than I have. There's this iron sharpens iron, right?
Yeah.
We're supposed to have that all the time. Worshiping together in a setting where everybody is in there worshiping together. You're learning, you're growing, you're seeing things, you're maturing. But also what's happening is you're being pushed out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Worship is an easy way to look at that. Not everybody has the same style of worship and all this kind of stuff. But when you get together and you worship together, there's something about that's why when I talk to people that, well, they can only worship with one style of music or one, that's not a good sign. That shows a sign of immaturity.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Young or old, it doesn't matter. It shows a sign of immaturity.
I love that you said iron sharpens iron, because your iron is not being sharpened on your living room and your couch.
It's not.
On, watching YouTube. Like, it's just not happening. But
I have to get in the presence of other people.
Yeah.
I have to get around people that think different than I do. That's actually the most important thing.
Yeah.
Even in marriage, I say this all the time when I'm doing marriage teaching. That one of the reasons that one of the jobs of your spouse, not in a proactive sense, if they take this actively, they've messed up the whole thing. But one of the passive reasons for you being married to your spouse is because they are sandpaper to you. Now, if they see that as their goal, I'm gonna be sandpaper to you.
It's not good.
It's pride. They're wrong now. Yeah. It's got out of balance.
It's naturally supposed to be that way, though.
It's supposed to be. That's what life is about.
Yeah.
That's why back in the day with the ascetics, that all these guys that would isolate themselves and live in caves for 30 years, they didn't read the Bible. There was something so skewed about their understanding of Jesus. If that was true holiness, then Jesus would have lived in a cave.
Yeah, he did for periods, not in a cave, obviously, but he would go by himself for a period of time
to pray.
Sure, yeah. But eventually, you gotta come back. Sorry, I feel like I took us on a long tangent there, but I want to get back to politics. Try to bring this around here. So, when did you first decide that you wanted to run for office, and what was the first office that you ran for? What was like your first real political engagement?
So again, I've always been politically charged. I always talk about stuff from the pulpit. I don't shy away from that. If they want to take my 501c3 status, then okay, we'll do that and pay taxes. But I'm still gonna preach the truth. And so I've had a lot of people over the years interact with me in that way, and our church engages. A lot of people think it started with the whole COVID thing. It really didn't. That was just part of who I am.
Yeah.
It didn't change anything. But then I had a couple. This would have been just a few weeks before the 22 election, and I had a representative call me and said, "Will you consider running for office for your district?" I'm like, "No." They said, "Your representative is running for Congress." That was Dave Williams. He was the state chair.
Okay.
He's running for Congress, and I'm like, I didn't know who Dave Williams was.
Yeah. Most people don't know who their state rep is.
Yeah, most people did. I didn't. Although I'm politically charged, it was more at the very state level and at the federal level.
Sure.
I didn't process and school boards.
Yeah.
I was always passionate about getting people in school boards, and
Good.
because I do believe that's the front lines, specifically in Colorado. But so then I got a call from the same representative and Dave Williams, like a group call.
Yeah.
And Dave kind of already thought I was running. He's like, "Okay, I need to ask you a few questions before you actually get elected." I'm like, "Well, slow down. Well, I'm not running."
Yeah.
And back and forth. And finally, this representative, it was Stephanie Luck down south, and she said, "Will you promise me you'll at least just pray about it?" And I thought, "Oh no."
She played the pray card.
She did.
Yeah.
And I thought, this sounds like a trap. And here I am. So I ran. And I only had 2 weeks to run. My whole campaign was 2 weeks.
Wow.
I didn't have a bank account or anything when I went to Assembly, and there was 2 other people running against me. And one of these was kind of an insider that had really tried to stack the deck delegate-wise, you know.
Yeah.
I didn't even understand that at the time. I didn't know that's what they were doing. And but I just visited every delegate that I could, almost all of them, in 2 weeks. I just went to wherever they were and just told them who I am and what my heart really was and why I wanted to do this. I didn't have a bank account. I didn't have one penny. And I swept the Assembly.
Wow.
And
You must have had some sort of connections in that world before doing that, right? Like,
No.
How would they even know who you are? Why would they vote for you over the other two?
because I talked to them.
Okay.
This is one of the things that I think is so important in our state that we're losing, and we don't realize what we're losing. Even some very good conservative people don't realize what we are losing. When we push against a caucus mentality and go to a petition on mentality and some of this other stuff, guys like me will never be elected again because I didn't have $50,000 for a petitioning process.
Sure.
I didn't have it. Mine was I literally went and knocked on doors and talked to delegates.
Yeah.
And just told them, this is who I am, like it or not like it. And I've never compromised. I've never tried to water it down or move to the middle or anything that I always hear from people. This is the only way we can win. Our strategy for the last 15 years has been move to the middle, and we lose votes every single year.
Yes.
We get less and less and less every single year, but we keep sticking with the same playbook. That is the definition
Yeah.
of insanity.
Yeah. If one side is willing to compromise and the other one isn't, then over time it's just going to keep drifting that way.
Yes.
You know. Thank
Which,
you.
by the way, is the Israel-Gaza. That is Israel-Gaza.
Sure.
Okay. So I just was bold, strong. This is what I believe. Now, I had been a pastor in Colorado Springs for 13 years, so it's not like I didn't know people, right? But I literally jumped into a world that was a little outside my scope.
Yeah.
But I knew what I believed, and I knew what most people actually do believe too, which is very similar to what I believe.
Yeah.
That's not how people think about it or spill it, but that's what's going on. And so
that meeting, is that where they determined the nominee?
that's if you get at least 30% at assembly of the votes, you go to the primary.
Okay.
Well, I swept it, so I got more votes than the other two could not be in the assembly because I got their votes too. I mean, it's not their votes. I just got more than
Yep.
I got 70%.
Yep.
Okay. And so I went to the assembly, to the primary, and won the primary by 3-1, over the Democrat.
Heck yeah, you did. Right
But,
here, bro. Come on.
That's right.
Not playing games.
I don't play. So that's the first jump in, and then the last time, this last go around, same thing. Just been running. You're always talking to the community. It's not. I don't see it as running for office all the time. Let me use this as a good teaching moment kind of thing. If the goal of the individual is to get elected, they're not going to be good when they're elected. Because what are they going to be doing? Trying to get elected
Right.
again.
Yeah.
But if your goal is to really come in and change things and really change them for the better and to speak truth and not to play the games and not to do all the money stuff and the corruption and
Yeah.
all the things, and I don't play any of that stuff.
Yeah. You have to run with conviction. Yeah.
You have to do this with conviction. You're doing it to help people. If I don't get reelected, but I gave it my best, then I'm good. And I also served well. I know I served well. People always say, well, the people voted you in, so you serve the people. I don't live by that mantra. I primarily serve Jesus Christ. And I'm getting elected to serve Jesus. And I know if I will, same thing with marriage, if I will put Jesus first in everything, I will be doing the right thing by the people.
What do you think about the concept of you can't legislate morality?
That's the stupidest thing people can say. Every legislation is morality.
Yeah.
There's no legislation that exists that's not morality.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
You go to jail for committing murder. You're legislating morality.
Yeah.
And it's the same way from the other side. They just like to couch it. If you're saying that I have to use a pronoun for you because you have a mental illness that needs to be addressed, but I have to enable that mental illness,
Yeah.
and I have to use a pronoun, that's morality.
Yeah. What bothers me is when Republicans say that, because you're just completely ceding the entire fight. Because someone's morality is going to be in the legislation.
Yes.
Why would you want it to be someone who's an atheist or is completely counter to everything you believe in? It's just like such a weak position to even start in.
When Republicans say that, first, they should never be elected if they say that. Because the first answer to that, there is no such thing as legislating without morality. But what they're trying to say is, I'm a fiscal conservative, but I don't care about babies, children, life. I don't care about pedophiles. I don't care about any of that. I just care about taxes and stuff like that.
Budget, yeah.
But taxes is a moral issue too.
Yeah.
We actually see it in the New Testament 3 times where it's discussed. And so the idea that it's not moral is silly.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just the amazing pushback of weak.
So you were elected to state representative.
Yes. So
Okay.
So
How are we doing on time, by the way? What time are we at?
We are 1:30.
1:30? Okay. We're doing good.
So then about this time last year, which is a little bit earlier, it was about August, September of last year.
Okay.
I really began to process this whole governor thing. I had some very, very key people in my life. So I can explain a little bit how this works. When you're a representative like me, and you're strong, okay? Everybody you come across will ask you, when are you running for governor? They all ask that.
Yeah.
I didn't see that as a word from God or any of that kind of stuff, right? I don't believe you should get your words from God from other people. I think you're supposed to get your word from God. That's crazy, but that's how I
Do you
look
think
at
it can come through people, though?
It can, but in the way I look at Scripture, it should almost always be a confirmation, unless
Sure.
the only time it's not a confirmation is a judgment thing, and that's because you've probably gone too far and you're not listening, and God is going to work on you.
Okay.
And it's not going to be pretty.
It does bother me when Christians are like, God told me you're supposed to do this. And I'm like, I feel like you're using, frankly, it's using God's name in vain. You're attaching God to what you want me to do.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
Well, and part of that same subject is we have a strong culture in American Christianity of like a modern day where you fortune teller, where you go get your fortune told by somebody else. Why? Because you're not mature enough to listen to God yourself. We're supposed to pray and fast to listen to God. And then when somebody comes to us, it's going to confirm what God is saying.
Yeah.
And it's going to even convict us, but in a confirming way. If God is having somebody come to you outside, it's almost always, scripturally, it's almost always judgment.
Yeah.
But that's not how we do it in America. We got, I got a word for you, this kind of mentality. And I'm Pentecostal, so prophecy, words of knowledge, all this stuff, that is my culture. That is my understanding. But I think we misuse it in an unhealthy way.
Yeah.
But I did have a handful of people that were very, very important to me, and I have not told them this yet. They don't know unless they watch this and they think, well, I said that to him. It could have been me. There are 3 or 4 people that just really are strong in my world that I respect greatly for decades that said, I think you really should think about governor someday, Well, that started getting to me last fall. I began to really pray and fast about it. And it's kind of a longer story, but I prayed, God, you need to show my wife this. and her come talk to me.
Yeah.
Because normally we just discuss everything, but this one's kind of a big one. So she did 3 things all within about a week and a half, and then talked to me about it. And I'm like, okay, you don't realize it's your fault now. We're running for governor. So we did that. We declared at the right in December, and it's been an amazing ride.
Yeah.
I am so pumped where we are. I'm so excited with everything that's happening and things that I never would expect that just come out of left field. And should that be right field? Left? I don't know. But
yeah.
but and it's just impacting us. We are light years ahead of all the other candidates. We're so pumped where we are in all of our structures, in our platform, in everything.
Yeah.
The only thing that I was ahead of everybody for a while, and I'm not now, is in fundraising.
Okay.
But I will be in another few months.
Gotcha.
And when somebody gets one big donation, it kind of.
Well, I know I said this to you already before we started recording, but congratulations on your straw poll results recently, and you were 5 times more technically, but 5 times ahead of the second place person.
Yeah.
So that was pretty amazing.
Well, I had twice as many votes as all of the other 13 candidates or whatever, however many there were. All of the other ones put together, I had twice as many votes.
That's kind of amazing. So you must be doing something right. And so who would you say, I guess, how do I ask this gently without putting other people down? Who is kind of your competition in the primary right now? Who are you concerned about, if anyone, or, how do you look at your other primary candidates?
Well, so I got in way before everybody else.
Okay.
And we did that intentionally because we wanted to set everything up way before anybody else even declared.
Okay.
Every time somebody else declares, and some of these people are friends of mine, I've known for a while, and I've worked with them and things like that. And every time somebody else gets in the race, I start getting all these phone calls and texts and messages and everything. Mm-hmm. Oh no, they're in the race. What are you going to do? I'm going to keep doing what I've been doing.
Yeah.
Long before I ran for governor. Right. I'm going to be me, and I'm going to speak what I think is truth. As respectfully as I can say this, because some of these people are my friends. Okay. They're not going to win governor. I'm the only one that can go head to head with Bennett. I'm so far above everybody, even all the 2 or 3 newer ones that have jumped in the race. Time will show who they really are. Time will show all that stuff. I'm not worried about that. My sights are set on Senator Bennett. Polis has already tapped him that he's the guy. Yeah. Weiser has no chance.
Yeah.
Because Polis is not going to allow that. Plus Bennett and Polis have this agreement that Bennett will still have 4 years on his Senate run, and he's going to appoint Polis to his Senate seat to pad his presidential run. Yeah. Because he's so far behind Gavin Newsom now. Polis and Newsom a year and a half, 2 years ago were running head to head because Gavin was making some major mistakes. Polis is just an outright Marxist. He will do everything he can to tear down our country. So will Gavin Newsom. But Governor Polis is not near as good at hiding it as Governor Newsom is. He's too much out there with it. Yeah. Which I appreciate because I don't want him as governor. I mean, as president. I do not want him as president.
Yeah. You think he'll still run?
I think he'll still run. Yeah. And part of the biggest reason is because World Economic Forum started grooming him 10 years ago. Okay. For president. And they've been working strongly with him. And he will make a big push at the end because he'll have so much money. When Klaus Schwab is the guy behind you, you're going to get some traction. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, but Polis is. That's why he needs that Senate seat, right? I'm running against Bennett. The rest of the Republican governor candidates, someone will run for other offices, I think. I've encouraged a few of them too, because they will be very good in that office, and they cannot win governor.
So wasn't there a poll recently that came out? Basically, the timing for Republicans right now is about as good as it can be. Yes. And it seems like there's at least rumblings that there's maybe even a chance.
Well, I'll give you more than just that. No, that is true. So we're seeing this from national level, because when Trump got elected, a lot of people are saying because Trump got elected, we have an open window in 26. That's not what's happened. What's happened is our country is changing. Our country is pushing back. I don't think they're changing. I think they've always been this. They're just pushing back against this crazy leftist, Marxist / transgender ideology. Transgenderism is rooted in Marxism. Okay, you add Antifa and BLM to that. That's the Marxist trifecta right there.
Yeah.
That is being pushed back against the entire country. That's what got Trump elected. It's not because Trump got elected. Now we're seeing this roll down into Colorado. I'll give you a couple little things to process. Forbes magazine did an article about 2.5 weeks ago, that said that Colorado is no longer a blue state, that it is very winnable by a Republican.
Yeah.
Now they said it needs to be a strong Republican. They said somebody that's not even running, but I'm that guy. They just didn't get to me yet. They will. 26 is ripe for me to win the election. Nobody else in the process right now can win it. Not against Bennett, not in the general election. And so we do have this window. If we don't capitalize on it in 26, we won't have a 28. I hear too many Republicans talking about, well, over the next few cycles in 28 and 30, we're going to win. No, if we don't win in 26, our elections are so corrupt in Colorado. And I could give you why I think our election will not be crazy corrupt in 26, but it will be locked down corrupt in 28 if we don't win in 26.
Is that because of the woman who's running for attorney general, do you think? What was your reasoning? I forget, what's that girl's name? I'm going to be upset.
Jenna Griswold?
Yes, thank you. I feel like she's extremely vulnerable. I kind of hope she wins the nomination. Maybe I shouldn't say that because she might actually become AG, but goodness, I feel like if there's just a strong attorney that can challenge her, she is just ripe for attack. Like there's just so much there.
I'll give you more than that. This is why I think our elections will be the most secure it's been in 20 years. But if we don't lock it in 26, we won't have this same window in 28.
Okay. Why is that?
She's being investigated under 4 things right now by the DOJ. Most of the public doesn't know this. The 2020 election, 24 election, the BIOS password release, and the voter anomalies in Arapahoe County, which, by the way, are the same all over the state.
Yeah.
She's being investigated. Her office, the machines, everything is being investigated on those 4 levels.
Do you trust the investigation?
Yeah, I do, because it started with Trump's lawyers investigating Tina Peters. That's where the origination.
Okay.
So the investigation is growing out of the Tina Peters issue.
Yeah.
Which she was already a judge in Colorado a few months ago, 2.5 months ago, 3 months ago, said she was guilty of no crime, that the reason she was in jail was to stop her First Amendment right to free speech. She is a political prisoner. A Democrat judge in Colorado said that.
Yeah.
Okay. So Trump said, Polis, let her go. Polis said no. A week and a half later, 4 investigations from the DOJ on that issue.
Wow.
It's very much being monitored by the executive branch.
Well, good.
And so here's my posit. I may be wrong about this, but you can check this out. You can hold me accountable. Bring him back on the podcast and say, you were wrong about this, okay? I believe Griswold and Attorney General Weiser will be indicted before the 26th election.
Wow.
But not necessarily for those 4 investigations, although they will lead to it. They'll be indicted for sedition. And I believe there will be another very high up in the state politics person indicted also.
Do you have someone in mind and you just don't want to say who it is? Or
Yes.
Okay. Well, I won't push you on that then.
I knew who they are. I'll tell you off screen.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good.
But you can't say that I said it.
All right.
Because I don't want to be sued. The other 2 are easy. I know the stuff on them. The third one I couldn't back it up. But,
Gotcha.
But yeah, and even if Griswold is not indicted before the 26th, she'll be so scared to do one wrong move that I think this will be the most secure election we've had in a long time.
Good.
And here's the reality. I can give you a bunch of demographics and reasons why I will be the next governor. But if we just have a fair election, I'm the next governor.
Yeah.
If we just counted all the votes, I'm the next governor. We haven't counted all the votes in a long time.
Yeah. Have you already kind of prepared for like actual election operations?
Yes.
Like collecting ballots legally, of course.
Yes.
doing all that stuff. Okay,
Yeah.
good.
We have teams all over the state.
I just feel like in
And not
the
just
past,
me, there are other people that are too. For example, Heidi Ganal has a group that's going all over the state that's
Okay,
going to be
good.
doing this,
Good.
right? You know, Heidi's not in my camp, but I do believe what she's doing is good there.
Yeah.
We need those kind of things. But all across the West Slope right now,
Scott Pressler model. Do you know who Scott
yes,
Pressler is?
yes,
That's what I want here.
yes. Now, yeah, and it's what I'm talking about is a little different. But yes, I would love Scott Pressler to come and work for my campaign here. But I do have people that are doing what he's doing, just not as big as he did it.
Sure.
But we're actually having groups that are going to be watching the polls, that are watching the drop boxes
Yes.
all over the state. When I'm governor, day one, I'm going to cut those drop boxes off the ground and throw them in an incinerator. They have no place in politics. And mail-in ballots have no place in politics. That is corruption waiting to happen.
Yeah.
It's intentional corruption. That's why it exists. And so we're seeing this all over the state where people are going to be monitoring everything. County clerks, monitoring the county clerks, specifically the ones that were so easily accepting to letting Griswold pull them in and take over their jobs.
Yeah.
They're elected by the people, but now they work for Griswold directly.
Yeah.
That's what she did. That's actually illegal,
Yeah.
which is part of what she's going to go to jail
Yeah.
for.
There has to be oversight and accountability.
Yes. And that's part of what's going to put her in jail and put me in the governor's seat.
Yeah.
So
Good. Okay, so with our last maybe 10 minutes or so here, I just want to ask you about some basic policy questions, and then final question will be, what do you actually intend to do once you become governor? But what are your views on abortion?
So I disagree with abortion under any circumstance. It's murdering a baby, and it doesn't. When somebody says I disagree with abortion except in cases of,
Yeah.
then that means they don't disagree with murdering babies. They're okay with murdering babies under certain circumstances. And the two biggest are always said is rape and incest. I understand that's a tragedy to that mom, but the baby didn't do anything. Why murder the baby? If you don't want the child, which I would understand, I don't judge that. Give it up for adoption. There are people that are waiting for that.
So I'll ask you a difficult follow-up. So would you, in law, ideally have it be where murdering a 3-month-old fetus is the same as murdering a 30-year-old, woman? Like, legally speaking, equivalent murder.
If I could, so we've constitutionalized this, so much I can do as governor, which is discouraging. But my philosophy, that's called equal protection. It's called personhood. A human is a human. Why do we say that you can murder them? See, that conversation really is much bigger than the way you described it. I understand what you're saying. But what about, I think it was Switzerland. I may be wrong about that. But Switzerland talked about how they've eradicated Down syndrome. No, the way they said it is they've completely cured Down syndrome.
Through eugenics.
Through eugenics. That's not curing, that's murdering children.
Yeah.
But they say that's a cure. Just like we say that aborting babies right now is reproductive health.
Right.
Those are just word
the most
lies.
grotesque euphemism you could possibly use.
I have a brother that is unique. He has special needs. And so are we just allowed to kill him?
Right.
Because we don't want people like that in our society?
Yeah.
When people, and sometimes the conversation is viable, a 3-month-old is not viable. They can't survive on their own. Well, neither can paraplegics in a lot of senses. We just kill them?
Yeah.
And we have the same conversation now with older people. Euthanasia, that we're just going to kill older people?
Yeah.
This is literally out of the Nazi playbook. This was the solution that Goebbels came forward with. This is how we get rid of all the people we don't want. And it's interesting to me that homosexuals were part of that group in World War II, and the same playbook is what we're using today, and homosexuals are sometimes even involved in that. I don't understand that.
Yeah.
Eugenics, the black community. The only reason eugenics existed with Margaret Sanger and Planned Parenthood was to get rid of black people.
Yep.
And black people have percentage-wise the highest number of abortions today. When do people wake up and go, wait a second, maybe we're being lied to
Yeah.
by the very people that are saying, trust us?
It's the same eugenic Democrat Party that it's always been. Talk about
Always.
systemic racism. Democrat Party was founded to keep slavery legal.
Yes.
And that's about as systemically racist as you can get. The Republicans, of course, were founded to free slaves.
I'll give you a little fun thing to look up is right after the Civil War, look up 13 representatives, congressmen, senators in the South. They were elected in the Republican Party, which was the party of Lincoln, and they were all of them previous slaves. And every single one of them fought for their freedom,
Yeah.
got free, was elected to office down in the South, and the Democrat Party started the Ku Klux Klan because of them.
Yeah.
Look this stuff up.
And but the party switch. You must have not heard about the party switch, right?
Right, where now we're the racist and they're not.
Yeah, because one day they all just shook hands and were like, all right, we're switching names now. You're a Democrat and I'm a Republican.
Yeah.
No, that's a myth.
It's a joke.
Everyone knows that's a myth.
It's a joke. I am the least racist person you can find.
Yeah.
But I get called racist all the time. By who? The people that are trying to keep black people down, Mexican people down.
Yeah.
They call me racist because I actually look at them as solid individuals that have the same input into society that I do. It's not a skin color.
Yeah.
You know what Martin Luther King Jr. said? I say this every year on a celebration of him in the Capitol. And they hate it. The Democrats hate it when I say this. When he said that he's dreaming of a day when we can judge people not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
Yeah.
That's not the Democrat Party today.
No, it
Democrat
doesn't.
Party today judges everybody by the color of
They'll
their
actually
skin.
call that a racist idea.
They do. They
Yeah.
say I'm racist because I quote one of the most non-racist leaders of the
Right.
civil rights movement.
Well, just look at what Democrats still do today. They're eugenically, ethnically cleansing the United States through abortion. They say, oh, we'll just give you some food stamps and shut up, and that should
Yeah.
satiate you. Democrats actually believe that they are dumber. They actually believe that black people are dumber, so they lower the standards
Standards of
to go
everything,
to college.
education,
Yes,
everything.
any kind of testing that's required, they'll lower the standards because Democrats believe they just can't make it on their own.
And they also
And it's
don't
the same
want
party. They've just repackaged it and gave it a paint job.
Yeah, and they don't want them to make it on their own because then who are they going to give all the money to, and who are they going to have vote for them?
Right.
Because they're buying their votes through that.
It goes back to the LBJ's Great Society.
They're keeping an entire group of people down because they don't want them to rise. To come out of the black community and make something amazing of yourself, you can do it. Any person, it doesn't matter their skin color, can do it. They can be great.
Yeah.
They can do great things. But the black community doesn't like that. Because how dare you do that? And when you come out like Clarence Thomas, when you come out and you say something about it, you're called an Uncle Tom and everything else. It's
Well, Democrats
sad.
like dependent
Yes.
voters. And so anyway, okay, well, what about guns?
I'm 2A to the core.
Should private citizens be allowed to own tanks?
I don't care if they own a tank.
What about automatic rifles?
I don't care if they own automatic rifles. I've never cared about that kind of stuff. This is the deal with me is the Second Amendment says no infringement. That a well-armed militia, well-armed at that point, was the most modern guns they had at the time. Okay, here's the dirty little secret with this. People talk about should people be able to own fully automatic weapons, right? And then they say, well, because all of those conservative rednecks that own all these automatic weapons are going to go shoot up everybody, except they're not the ones shooting up everybody. Did you know almost all school shootings and mass shootings in the last 10 years have been by a transgender person? And when it wasn't transgender, it was the very leftist of the Democrat Party. Republicans are not out there shooting people.
Yeah.
I know Jimmy Kimmel tried to make it sound like this good old Republican boy shot Charlie Kirk. He didn't. That's a lie because Jimmy Kimmel is part of the problem. He's not part of the solution.
Yeah.
The part of the solution is let's start actually having mental health issues dealt with in the transgender community instead of paying money to it, enabling them, telling them they're okay, and then training them. There was a training group outside that university in Utah that was all transgender people learning how to snipe people. There's a training group that was doing this. Why don't we deal with the mental illness issues rather than say nobody can have guns?
Yeah.
That's not the thing. Yes, there are people that don't need guns. I understand that. But when I start letting just a blanket law called a red flag law do that, okay, maybe, like Trump said recently, transgender shouldn't have guns. I know what he was trying to say, but I disagree with the mentality.
Yeah.
Because it's transgenders first and it's Christians second. And I won't be, because I will be considered mentally ill, because
Sure.
it's whoever's in office,
Yeah.
whoever's running the show. I believe the Second Amendment has no infringement.
Yeah.
Okay, no infringement means, to give you a fine example, is the regulation right now, the law, the infringement that says for me to conceal carry, I have to have a concealed carry permit. I have to go register, do all this stuff with the government to say I'm allowed to carry a gun. That's an infringement. Now I've had
What about
sheriffs.
schizophrenics?
Well, you do have people that are mentally ill that don't need guns. Like I said, there are people that don't need guns.
Yeah.
But I think we've made it way too wide and way too blanket
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
And if you talk to gun shop owners, they pick up on some of this stuff just intuitively, and
Right.
they don't sell guns to people.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There are people I know in my world that do not need to own a gun. But when we just start making these blanket red flag laws,
Right.
I know a multimillionaire that moved out of the state of Colorado this last year, is in process of moving. And I asked him why. I thought there was different reasons, whatever. He said, red flag laws. He said, right now, because most people in Colorado don't know this is how it works. If somebody gets upset at this guy and says, oh, he's a risk to society or
Right.
whatever.
Any accusation.
Any
basically.
accusation,
Yeah.
they will come in and take all of his guns first and then start an investigation to see if he can prove himself innocent. That is the exact opposite of how
You're
our law
exactly
works.
right.
But the red flag laws, they do this intentionally. Why? Because they don't want you to own a gun. They don't care if the transgender guy that's going to go shoot Charlie Kirk owns a gun. In fact, we have sitting representatives in the state of Colorado that celebrated that.
Yep.
They made a big deal how this was wonderful. And I sat and listened to one of our state representatives, name is Woodrow, that he talked about if Trump would have just turned, or if that bullet would have just been 2 inches to the right, our
Right.
whole country would have been saved. He should go to jail
Oh,
for
wow.
that. That is called sedition,
Yeah.
and he should go to jail for that.
Yeah.
But in Colorado, we're Democrat controlled. He can say those things, but you can't own a gun.
Right.
He can own guns all day long, but you can't.
Yep.
I can't because I'm a Christian conservative pastor. How dare I do that? Because I'm just going to go shoot up everybody. Right? It's the transgender community. It's the mentally ill community
Yeah.
that's doing this.
It's also SSRIs. I'm not sure what the percentage of people that have been transgender mass shooters. I know the SSRIs are like over 90%.
Yes.
People on SSRIs. So two, you said you're okay with some difficult questions. I got two more difficult questions, and we can wrap it up here. But last thing on the gun issue, what people don't understand is that guns are actually the solution to
Yes.
mass shootings. You want to protect children. You want to protect women. The way you do that is having a firearm to shoot back at the bad guy.
Yes.
And that just seems so simple to me. But
You know, the campus that Charlie Kirk was on was a gun-free zone,
yep.
right?
And
Why didn't anybody tell the sniper? Because if he would have just read that sign, he would never have shot
That's a
Charlie
good
Kirk.
point.
He would have said, no, this is a gun-free zone. How dare I?
yeah, maybe he was
Bring a
illiterate.
gun to
and-
it.
I don't know, but no, you're exactly right. Yeah, it's already illegal to murder someone. So writing down you can't own this particular firearm or have this many rounds in your magazine.
Do you know what the number one weapon that is being banned now in England?
Knives?
Knives.
Is it?
Because they took all the guns away.
Yeah.
So now they got to ban knives.
It's
Although
like
people
anything over
still
the-
do have guns,
Yeah.
and suicide bombers still have bombs.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but a gun will stop that. A gun is a great equalizer for women too.
You're exactly right.
Women, the strength of a man, they need the gun to protect.
I don't
themselves.
understand why Democrats don't want women who are being raped to be able to defend themselves.
Because they don't care if women are raped. They pass laws all the time that hurt the women that are trying to talk about rape. You know, the whole Me Too movement was a big fake. They will make laws that make it easier for the rapist to get out of jail. Look this up. I've had 3 press conferences about this, 2 in front of the Supreme Court and 1 in front of Arapahoe County Justice Center on HB 24-1034. That law lets people get out of jail very, very easily now because they just declare themselves to be incompetent, and all they have to do is get somebody to sign off on that. Used to have to be 2 doctors, psychiatrists, psychologists, all this.
Yeah.
Now, as long as the DA signs off on it, they're incompetent. They get out on they get out, and their records are erased.
Wow.
I'm one of 2 people in the House and the Senate that voted against that. And I've had people say, well, nobody saw this coming.
So even Republicans voted for that. Is that what you're telling me? That's so heartbreaking.
And I've had people say, well, you couldn't have seen this coming. Then why did I vote against it? I voted against it because I did see this coming.
Yeah.
We were going to put people in danger, and we are making victims of citizens of Colorado by our crazy laws that protect criminals. So when Democrats talk about how we're the party of women's rights, no, you're not. You don't mind them being unprotected. Yeah. You're okay with them being raped. How is that good for society?
Yep, it's not. Okay, two last questions here, and then we can wrap it up. What are your views on gay marriage?
This is a crazy conversation that comes up all the time. Here's my deal with marriage: is I don't like the concept of how the church, and this started in the 1600s in America, before America was America. The local colonies, we'll use the term municipalities, were trying to get people to pay taxes, right? This was primarily still to the king.
Okay.
So they came up with this great idea. If we will give tax breaks, because nobody was paying them. They're like, come get me, king. So
right.
Nobody's paying the taxes in America. And so they said, well, if we can get people to pay tax, how are we going to do that? So one of the things that they did, and this is the only one that stuck from that time frame, was if you're a married couple, we will let you have a tax break. Everybody will pay taxes. Married couples get a break, and once you have children, this came later. Once you have children, you get credit for your child.
Yeah,
right? You get earned income credit. Well, this was a ploy to get people to pay taxes. But here's the thing: nobody was registering a marriage with the state. There was no state to register it with.
Yeah.
It didn't exist. And so all of a sudden now you got to register marriages with local municipalities. The way they'd done that before is that the pastor wrote in a book they are married. It was all the church. It was not the state. Well, we gave up the right at that point. The state is now in charge of marriage instead of God and the church, right? Evolved over time, and this is going to be the natural evolution. When the state's in charge of anything, they're going to corrupt it and pervert it, and for their own benefit. Right. Well, the gay marriage thing is an ideological thing. If 2 men come up to me and say we're married, and by the way, I have friends that are gay that we've had this conversation. Okay, I don't shy away from the conversation. They say we're married. I'm like, whatever. Say what you want. Who said you're married? Well, the state. Okay? In my world, the state does not have that authority. In my theological understanding, the state doesn't have that authority.
Yeah.
And I have people that come to me and say, can we get married without having a marriage license? And there's different reasons why people want to do that. I had an old couple years ago. They were both like 85. And they said, we're both on retirement. If we get married officially, we lose one of our retirements. And I said, well, what do you mean by officially?
The state signs it.
The state signs it. Well, I don't think the state has the authority to acknowledge my marriage or not acknowledge my marriage. So the concept of gay marriage is a state thing. It's not a church thing, and it's not me.
Yeah.
Marriage is defined in Scripture as between a man and a woman. And that's the only definition I'll ever accept.
There's kind of like, it alludes also to some sort of public ceremony or declaration, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, now that's more of the tradition side of things. We don't actually see the marriage ceremony in Scripture.
Okay.
That's more of a tradition side and with the church involved, and I think that's necessary and important. Now, here's the other side of the same coin. So if somebody says, well, I'm married to a man's married to a man and a woman's married to a man. Okay, that's your deal. That's not my deal. The only criteria I have is the biblical criteria, and that's all I go by. So they say, well, you don't acknowledge it. It's not a matter whether I acknowledge it or not. That's a state thing. State can acknowledge everything else. That the Bible acknowledges this one definition of marriage.
Yep.
Okay, now, with that being said, I do have couples that will have this discussion, young couples. They'll say, so do you think we should not get registered with the state? That's not what I said. Register if you would like. It'll benefit your children long term if you do register with the state. Okay? But to understand at the end of the day, the state can't give and the state can't take away in that arena.
Yeah.
And that's where people get very confused with the scriptural context. And then when you start coming to divorce, what does that mean? Well, now you're talking state things again. You're not talking church things.
Yeah.
There's definitions of divorce in Scripture. Those are the ones I go by. And so, but if you want your kids to have Social Security, or you want them to have, the Pell Grant or something when they go to college, then register with the state.
Yeah.
I'm not anti-registering with the state. But the only place that a gay marriage could be is in a state constitutional mentality, not a biblical constitutional mentality. It's a long answer, but...
No, you're good. I think that's a great answer. Last thing here, you briefly touched on it. And I also understand this is not within the purview of Governor of Colorado, but I am curious about your thoughts on Israel-Palestine conflict.
So I've been shouting this for 30 years. So this is not a new conversation for me just because of what's going on over there. The concept of Palestine used to be Israel. You can look back 70, 80 years ago.
I thought the Palestinians were there first.
No, that doesn't exist. That's a big lie of society. The Palestinian newspaper in what's now called Gaza was a Jewish newspaper. There was different Arabs that lived in the area, but it wasn't. In fact, you can even go back. Mark Twain travels into Israel. He wrote a travel log or biography back in the day of all of his stuff, and he talked about how Israel was a wasteland, and he specifically talked about that area, and there was nothing there. The Palestinian terminology was first used by a British dignitary in the late 1800s to describe, and the reason is because he was irritated with the Jews, and he meant to say Philistines.
Okay.
And he said Palestinians for Palestine. But
is that really where the term comes from?
Yes,
really?
It's where the term. Wow. Look back in history. It's the first time it was ever used. Ever.
Wow.
Okay. Then you got this little short terrorist guy named Yasser Arafat that in the 1970s. So I was alive during this. I watched this stuff happen. He was kicked out of Libya. He was kicked out of Jordan. All these Syria. None of them wanted this terrorist in their country. Yeah. So he moved into what is now called Gaza, and he took that over. And the Jewish people were very nice about letting this happen because he was going to do it either way, and they didn't want another big war or whatever. And so he started realizing that if he made themselves the victims, so he takes this term that had been used in that area for Palestine, but it was for the Jews. It was never used for the Arab people. It was used for this region. I just talked to a guy a couple weeks ago, and he says, I'm Palestinian. I said, what bloodline is that? There is no Palestinian bloodline. It was a terrorist that moved in there, and he started originally calling it the Palestinian Liberation Organization, PLO. That was a terrorist organization in the 70s. Look it up. They always wore a black and white headband and for this kefifa. And so he moves in there, he's a terrorist, starts doing all this. Nobody in the world, the United Nations, nobody saw this guy as a good guy. But 50 years later, now that's a people group and they're the victims.
Yeah.
It never existed. There is no such thing as a Palestinian people.
Yeah.
There are Arabs that lived all over that place. The Jews lived there for a long time until the Arabs all kicked them out. You know where the Arabs have not been kicked out of? Israel. There are leaders in Israeli government that are Arabs, Muslims in Jewish government. But the Jews were all kicked out of what's called Palestine now. I do not believe in a two-state solution. I've never believed in it because it's never going to happen, ever. When they say from the river to the sea, I see college students chanting that all the time in America. They don't even know what river. They don't know what sea. They don't know what they're talking about. What that means is ethnic cleansing of all Jewish people on the planet.
So just to counter that, you just said that you do not believe in a two-state solution, and then you referred to from the river to the sea as being an ethnic cleansing. So if you don't believe in a two-state solution, wouldn't you also believe in an ethnic cleansing in the opposite direction?
No.
Okay.
No, just move them to somewhere else.
Okay.
This is the thing that they tried to do. When
So you don't believe that Israel is genociding any
no, that's a
Palestinians?
big joke.
Okay.
I've been
Where's
there.
that coming from, though?
It's coming from Hamas
Well, sure, but I
and the
mean,
United Nations
why does
and
it seem
Germany.
that so many people are kind of going along with that, and even Republicans? It seems like it's an increasing movement there.
Well, first it's spiritual. It has always been Satan's plan. Look through from Genesis to Revelation. It's always been Satan's plan to destroy the Jews. They're God's people. Whether you like that or not, it is irrelevant. That's just reality. They're God's people. They're not committing any kind of genocide. We've had people on the ground. We've had cameras. There's a guy, his name is Amir Tsarfati.
Yeah.
Look him up. Look at what he's showing. He shows people sitting in restaurants having parties and stuff while the genocide is going on, while they can't get food and they're all starving to death.
Yeah.
But they're not. This is a big lie. The United Nations hates Israel. And by the way, the United Nations needs to go away. If I was president, I would stop all interaction with the United Nations. No more money to anything United Nations overnight. But here's the thing: they're lying about all this stuff. The Jewish people are the humanitarians in that area. They're the free people trying to give freedoms to those people. Nobody else is. Are Iranians putting Christians or women or Hindus or Buddhists, are they allowed to run for office in Iran?
No.
In Syria? In Lebanon? In Jordan? In Egypt? In Turkey?
Yeah.
No. Saudi Arabia? Maybe a little bit. But in Israel, women are in high positions of power. Every religious group is in high positions of power.
Yeah.
But somehow Israel is the bad guys, but all these other people that would kill transgenders, kill homosexuals, kill Christians, kill anybody, not allow women. If a woman gets accused of being raped in all those Muslim countries, they will be killed for it.
Yeah.
By their own families. Is that happening in Israel? No. This is a big lie that's being perpetrated.
Yeah.
The Jews are not the genocidal groups. The Jews are the ones who were trying to help all of these people after October 7 because they knew they were going to bomb the mess out of that country.
Yeah.
They're trying to get them all to go into Egypt and said, we will pay, we will open the gates, we'll let you go into Egypt, whatever you want to do. Why did they not go all into Egypt? Egypt wouldn't let them.
Yeah.
The great humanitarian Muslim countries don't let other people come into their countries.
Even other Muslims, yeah.
Even other Muslims, right? Specifically if they're considered liberal Muslims.
Oh, sure.
That's the whole Sunni Shia issue.
Yeah.
And so, no, Israel's not the bad guys. They've always been the good. They do things that are not great sometimes, but so does America, so does every country.
Yeah.
But to blanket that and say, well, Israel are the bad guys. No,
right.
That's the big deception that Satan has played on the country. And this is why I really do judge people politically and how they ascertain information and how they look at truth and all that stuff greatly upon the Israel issue.
Yeah.
If you think Israel are the bad guys, I question your judgment at that point, because that means you can buy into a lie without investigating it.
Wow.
That's heavy.
Probably a good litmus test. Well, I really appreciate your time. I want to give you an opportunity to shout out social media, website. How can people donate to you or get in contact with you if they want?
Yeah.
Knock on doors, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So the easiest way is our website, scottbottoms.com, myname.com. And everything's on there, all social media. We actually have our own media, our media place. I don't forget what we call it right now. But you can go attached to that, and all of our social media stuff will hit you from all different angles.
Perfect. So scottbottoms.com. That's the best place to go.
There's giving portals there. We know Senator Bennett's probably going to have around 40 to 50 million.
Wow.
25 will probably come from Governor Polis. But we believe we can get between 7 to 10 million. And when we get that, we believe that our 7 to 10 million will beat Senator Bennett hands down. Mostly because of the grassroots across the state.
Heck yeah.
The people that are trying to win our state back and reclaim Colorado, we're going to reclaim Colorado for all Coloradans, including Democrats. Many Democrats are going to vote for me, and we're going to help them reclaim their Democrat Party from these extremists that have taken over their party. And so we definitely need the contributions. There's no doubt about that. and the volunteers. We have thousands of people that are already queuing up to volunteer for us, and it's exciting. I'm so pumped over this.
Yep.
I'd like to get through the assembly and the primary just because there's so much background noise right now with everything, and everybody's always worried. But once we get through the primary, put me in a room with Bennett and let's debate. Let's debate together in that room. I cannot wait till we get to that point.
Heck yeah.
So,
well, one more time, I really appreciate you being here. We'll have to do it again one of these days.
Yeah, especially if I'm wrong about the indictments of Griswold and Weiser.
I'll drag you back in.
You have to get, you said. I'm like, oops, my bad. No, I really do think that's going to happen, though. So we'll see.
Cool. Well, thanks
thank
again.
you. Thank you, guys.